Hello, partners. I asked my researcher and writer Dennis Daly to find out if the story of George Washington cutting down a cherry tree with his little hatchet was true or not. Well, before you hear his scripted answer, I want to tell you something about Dennis myself. He spent the first 30 years of his life in Washington, Indiana. Now, this has a population of 11,000, but it is the third biggest city with the name Washington in the nation. Naturally, the first is Washington, D.C. Dennis meets his friends in a big shopping center when he's back home. They have a local McDonald's there, and wherever McDonald's is, that's his favorite dining establishment. But listen to this. That shopping center that Dennis meets his friends in there in Washington, Indiana, is named Cherry Tree Plaza. Reminds you of who? George Washington, of course. Wait, there's a lot more. The nickname of the boys' basketball team is the Hatchets. Did you hear that? See all the connections? Well, now you can see when I phoned Dennis and asked him to do some research about the cherry tree story and that hatchet. Dennis didn't want to waste a minute. Man, he looked up everything, and he's got a lot to tell us about what he found out. Sadly, we found out that the cherry tree incident is a myth. But in spite of that, it is the most well-known and longest enduring legend about George Washington. If you remember, legend has it that when George Washington was a little boy, 6 years old, he received a hatchet as a gift, and he used it to cut down his father's cherry tree. When his dad found out what he had done, he was really upset, but then little George bravely said, "Dad, I cannot tell a lie. I did cut it down with my little hatchet." His father then, according to the story, forgave him and was proud that his son's honesty was worth more than 1,000 trees. Ironically, this iconic story about the value of honesty was invented by one of George Washington's first biographers. He was a roving minister and bookseller named Mason Locke Weems, W-E-E-M-S. After George Washington's death, there was a cry in the nation to know more about this founding father. Well, Weems saw this as a chance to not only fulfill his own curiosity about George Washington, but to make some money too. Weems' book, The Life of Washington, was first published in 1800. It was an instant bestseller. Well, year after year, Weems added to the book, kept coming out. And in 1806, the latest edition was the 6th printing, he added the cherry tree story to this one. To be honest, Weems made up a lot of exciting stuff about George Washington to make the book more exciting, but it's the story of the cherry tree that everyone remembers. Modern-day historians say that Weems is largely responsible for providing most of the true information about our first president, George Washington. And Weems did something else. Nearly every other person writing about George Washington paid him so many compliments. George Washington was made out to be some kind of god. Well, Weems made him human. After all, a god would not chop down a cherry tree, would he? Oh, Jimmy, what are you doing? Additionally, Weems wanted to present Washington as the perfect role model, especially for young Americans. That is serious and important. In truth, it's not known whether or not the young George Washington really had a good relationship with his father. His dad died when George was only 11. So all of what Weems wrote about Washington was really an attempt to make Washington more of an average person who rose to great heights. Well, now let's move forward in time. The nation was expanding, and nearly every wagon train going west had a copy of two books, the Bible and a small pocket-sized textbook called the McGuffey's Reader, MC-Guffey''S Reader. Over the years, more than 120 million copies of that little book were published. And here's an important thing. The McGuffey's Reader, in its section about George Washington, was where the story of the cherry tree was placed. Now, to further shore up this story, when the great huckster P.T. Barnum went around the country with his circuses and freak shows, he exhibited a weathered-looking old Negro woman. She claimed to be 161 years old. Wait, there's more. And she also claimed that she had known George Washington and that she personally heard him tell the story of the cherry tree. Hey, how much more proof do you need? Oh, what about the story that George Washington threw a silver dollar over a river? Well, he actually did like to skim small flat rocks over the Potomac at his mansion at Mount Vernon. But scientists say it's impossible to skim a silver dollar that far. But it's still a great story. So the bottom line is that the cherry tree story is just that, a story. But it's a great one. It teaches us about honesty and fatherly love. I love that story. Partners, let's keep it. Okay, time to go back to our report page. You know the drill. Look up there and see those three boxes at the right side. One farthest to the right has a red X in it. Click that box. Nothing else. It'll magically put you right where you were before the video started. Dennis, God bless you, guy. Thank you for giving us the truth about the cherry tree. I love you. Go get 'em, Tigers!